Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the MuseCast, episode 58. As we move further into the next year coming up, we got Christmas coming up and all that. And
Next
there's a
week.
lot of next
Christmas is
week. It's next
Christmas is
week.
less than a week away.
Yeah, I don't even know if it falls on a Thursday, if we'll get another episode in before this.
Christmas
Well,
is Wednesday next week.
okay. So then
It's less
we'll
than a
talk
week.
about Christmas on the next episode.
Merry,
Um,
Merry Christmas because
Merry Christmas to you because I won't see you till then. So off the top, I think this is a pretty big deal because this was one of the pinnacle bands for me when I was first starting guitar because I didn't start playing till I was 16. And this band hasn't played a show in a long ass time. And System of a Down is doing a very small tour run next year.
yeah. How many shows? I've seen they're like major dates, several major cities, but there's only
Hmm.
like four. Like,
So it was originally three, is my understanding, and then it expanded to six because the demand was insane, which
oh
is
yeah,
completely understandable. I mean, they got so big. I didn't realize how big they got until I was like watching a documentary thing on them on YouTube about this last year. And it was referencing the album sales, and they were like literally the biggest selling rock band for an era. Like, I mean, as far as like
yeah.
that heavy rock sound, their album sales were insane.
If you remember their single, the Toxicity. No. Sorry, it was the
Chop Suey,
Chop
I
Suey.
think, was the one that shut it
off
over the
off
top.
the Toxicity album. Yeah,
Yeah.
that song came out and the album came out, and I remember having conversations with people as a young man. I mean, I was probably not even 20 when that came out. Um, but saying that, they were a modern day Led Zeppelin as far
Huh.
as innovating and like changing. And I was young enough, I didn't know what the hell I was talking about too. But they are without a doubt a fun niche band. They have a sound that is unmistakable, and you don't hear any System of a Down song and confuse it with anyone else.
No, dude, you're right. So distinct, and they were so. I think that they were like the heaviest band that I liked, and to me, they were heavier than Korn and Limp Bizkit. Like where they took the songs for me, I just felt like it was so bombastic and heavy. The first,
Oh,
especially their first album that was self-titled, was so raw sounding. I didn't know what to make of it the first time I heard it. I kind of didn't like it. It was too heavy for me, but then I kind of did. Spiders is what sucked me in, the soft song.
same, same. Yeah,
Really?
I think, I think you and I were in the same mode. When I was young, I was in kind of like I guess stuck in like a radio rock mode where I liked the heavier stuff, but I didn't like the screaming for a little while. And
Hmm.
I remember the first System of a Down stuff being a little off-putting with like Sugar was the first one I heard.
Uh-huh.
But
Which is
but
so good.
but
And I didn't like it either.
ironically now, like Sugar might be my absolute favorite of all their songs.
Dude,
Oh
it's amazing. And I didn't like it when I first heard it. I was like,
yeah,
this is like, I don't know. It's trying to be too intense for me. I
maybe.
don't
Yeah, I
know.
was just I didn't get it. The guitar
Yeah.
player had this weird like pebbles and bam bam like little ponytail on top of his head and
Uh,
doing this little thing, played Fender Iceman, I'm sorry, Ibanez Iceman guitars.
okay.
Very distinctive guitar. The only other person that really made them famous was, I think, Paul Stanley from Kiss played
Uh,
Iceman guitars. Do you know
uh.
it's almost like an Explorer, but it's a really like wild, fantastical version
I'm
of
not
it.
familiar with. I didn't. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to the guitar. In fact, I think I I was like literally just getting into playing guitars when I first their because I didn't discover them on Toxic. I did discover
Okay.
them on their first album. That was
Yeah.
what year did that come out?
It had to be like around 98 because
Yeah.
it was past 2000 when Toxicity came out because I was already kicked out of school. I was later teens, but
Yeah.
I hadn't yet moved away. I wasn't even 19 yet, so it was
Yeah.
definitely prior to 2004
Yeah.
because that's when
Oh,
I turned
you know
20.
what? I remember one of the first songs I learned how to play a part of was spiders.
Mm,
Boom, ding,
yeah,
ding,
yeah,
ding, ding,
really.
ding, because there's just the powers and the power chords, and I'm sorry, the inverted
Yeah,
thirds. It was a first and a third, and then and the
it
minor
played with
scale.
octaves. It played with octaves a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they also had that going on too. And it was simple, effective, haunting, and but I didn't learn how to play the whole song, I don't think. I think I just learned like that first part and I was like, "Oh, I could play guitar." Like it was one of those things where it's like, "Oh, like these things are achievable to be able to play." As somebody that couldn't
Yeah,
play anything, that was a big deal.
it doesn't have to be that difficult to be good,
No, it
right?
it doesn't. And it's really hard to pull the reins back. I think half the time when I want to play stuff that's difficult, well, I guess it's twofold. One is I really just want to have fun playing it, and it is a lot more fun to play stuff that's a little bit like, well, for me, I
Simpler. Yeah,
I
I
just
like
like playing stuff that's like kind of like challenging, and then like it's very very fun. It's like getting in a sports car and only going in the school zone sometimes when you're
yeah,
just playing the most simple thing. And it's not that it's not good, it's just that it's not as fun to play that. It's hard.
yeah, I like fun. I like fun riffs. System of
Yeah.
a Down is not a band that I really gravitated towards in my younger years, like learning their stuff. There
Hmm.
were a couple of bands that I really went in and learned stuff, and it was really, it really just bounced from Metallica to Creed to Pantera to Tool, and then by the time I got through that, I kinda just stopped really learning other songs because I was writing my a bunch of I was determined to write my own riffs from then on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And but it was like I had to learn, and that was the only way to learn was to get the tablature books and to learn other people's songs.
I always gave
But
up.
System of a Down wasn't, they weren't a band that I did that, but I loved them. I
Yeah.
loved the music. Loved
Yeah.
loved how wild and fun it was. Loved every song that was on the radio. Loved every song on the albums. I mean, the Toxicity album still is like front to back classic. Doesn't matter. Every
It's
song.
so good, man. And it, like you said, is so original, and it kept evolving like what they were able to do because, and I think that was where part of the rift happened in their breakup. But Darren jumping in on more of the vocals, and then you were having like these weird duets. I mean, both singers, weird sounding singers,
Yeah,
and
totally
then doing
distinctive.
harmony.
Yeah, totally distinctive and unique.
Hmm.
I really liked the dynamic on the Toxicity album where there was a lot of the harmonies because it was just a strange harmony with Serge, who has
Hmm.
such a distinctive, a perfect. I say this a lot, like front men have to have an unmistakable voice,
Yeah.
like to them, and
Yeah.
Serge
Yeah.
Serge has that. Darren on
Definitely.
his own, people may disagree with me. There's a lot of controversy and split opinions on Darren. I don't feel that Darren has as unique of a voice. I feel it's the way he uses his voice is
I agree.
fairly unique. And I will also say that when the further past Toxicity it got, the more kind of discouraged I got because there was so much Darren, and
Mm.
it was a little off-putting to me in a different
Was
way.
it? Okay.
Yeah, like, it was, like, so much I was at the time, like, and I need to revisit a lot of that stuff, but I just remember saying, like, "Man, I wish he'd shut up and let Serge sing some more." You
Interesting.
know? Like,
Well, it did start to almost become like it became like a 60-40. And before it was like a 15-85, I feel like,
yeah, yeah,
And but that being said, I got to be honest, not that I liked things. I don't really know how to say what my favorite album of theirs is because for me, Mesmerize and Hypnotize were awesome too. They were like crazy good, and every album had a few standouts to me, like 3 to 5 songs that were just like for me a cut above the rest on the album. Not that any of them were bad, but that were just like, wow,
yeah,
like this is so nobody has this thing going on, whatever this is, and it hit me hard. Like I would just be like, this, I want it, that kind of sound that makes you want to become a musician if you're interested in becoming a musician. They kept hitting it on every album for me. There was jewels in there that pushed it that far where it's like, man, I really want to write music like that. Or not even like that, but that can do that, what
Yeah.
I'm experiencing to me. Not that it needed to sound like it, but just instigate that
They
uniqueness.
and they had some like they had some interesting themes that I really stood behind a lot of their like anti-war stuff when I was younger. I feel like
Hmm.
when it came out, I was like late teenager, maybe early 20s by the time I can't remember the name of the song, but why they always send the poor? Why they always send the
Bombs
kind of
over,
yeah
or no,
yeah
it's bring your own
BYOB
bombs. Yeah,
BYOB
not
yeah.
bombs over Baghdad. That's a
That
different
was
thing.
that song came out. I'd already moved back to Florida. I was living in Pinellas County, working in Central Florida, and that song came out. I was like, man, I was like, I was pretty not to be political, but I mean, I was young, so I was liberal. And I'm not saying I'm not
Hmm.
liberal now. I went through like the younger me was really liberal. Then I got a little more conservative in my mid years, and then now I'm more liberal again. But it was
Hmm.
there was a lot of weird like stuff that I didn't like about them. One thing I didn't like was they had a logo, and I can't remember if it was their distribution company or if it was the record label's distribution company. But on the back of their albums, they had an upside down American flag. Uh,
Mm.
that was like America or something, and that was like when I was young, I was just like, I don't like that. Like that's not
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It like
Well,
little things like that bugged me, but I love
sure.
the music.
Well,
They had sorry, go ahead. They had a
yeah,
message.
they had a crazy strong message. It's what broke up the band, I believe. I mean, I think there were two elements that I'm not going to act like I'm educated in knowing for sure, but I believe it was both the politics of how they wanted to approach the messaging and what they wanted to do for Armenia. I mean, it's where like the war, the genocide that was happening in Armenia. Okay. And then the
Yeah,
other thing was this, I believe, a bit of a writing power, pissing contest started to happen between Serge and Darren, I
yeah,
believe.
that was kind of like the
That was,
open book thing. I think
yeah.
everybody kind of picked up on that, where there was creative tension there.
Yeah. And when I say the genocide in Armenia, this is where I really have no, in following politics as deeply as I have the past few years without getting into politics on this conversation,
Yeah,
what I can say is that every issue is crazy complex and people have very elaborate, long historical backdrops to every whichever side you're on. There's a lot of reasoning behind coming to that conclusion, and it's on both sides, and so these things get super complicated, and I do not know enough about what is happening with the genocide in Armenia. If it could very well be happening. I don't have a view against it or for like I don't know what's going on over there. I'm
yeah,
totally ignorant to that story, and a lot of people are, and that was their whole thing is people didn't know that something was happening, and then they came back together for a small set of shows a year or two ago just to generate money that they donated every dollar to, I believe,
yeah.
to to people in Armenia, I believe.
No, that's really
So
awesome. And I know even less than you do about it, so
yeah.
I can't
So
weigh in. But it is a. I mean, there's places in the world that are not nearly as fortunate as the United States. I mean,
that's the thing. We are so lucky, man. I mean, we
yeah,
really are crazy lucky with the ability that we can do. There's a reason everyone's trying to come here. Let's put it
yeah,
that way.
yeah. It was like
There's a lot of opportunity.
that's why the Statue of Liberty, and I will not recite it because I don't know it, but the whole bring us your we'll keep the candle lit, bring us your poor, you're hungry, you're starving, you're outcast, or whatever it says. I'm an asshole for not knowing it, but that's what this country was founded on.
Yeah.
But then I also I
Well,
saw comments about the System of a Down
Philadelphia.
reunion not
Yeah.
having any Florida shows, and people saying things like, "Oh
Dude,
yeah, they're too liberal to come to Florida."
well, we've been talking for a while and we haven't even said where the tour dates are, when they are, and who they're playing with. So let's
Oh, where
cover
are they?
that real quick.
Yeah,
They are not playing anywhere near here. We won't get to see them play at all. They're playing, it looks like they're playing like back to back days in 3 places.
So,
Um,
like
and
2-night shows, like
yeah,
Saturday.
it looks like it. So like August 27th and 28th, this is in 2025, obviously. They're playing at the MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And the bands that are playing with them, at each show they have a different like co-main,
Mm.
and then they have the same openers. And the one of the openers is 2 openers, but one of the openers is Polyphia. Polyphia is playing with them at every show as
That's
an
cool.
opener. Isn't that
That's
cool,
awesome.
man?
Yeah.
That's so cool for them. That's got to be a head trip. But we saw, if you didn't follow along with our lives, guys, we we took our sons to go see Polyphia in Orlando last year, and they were fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but at the first show in New Jersey, they've got Korn playing with them,
As they
and that
should. That's a good
as they should.
that's a
But I
good
remember, dude, they were the opener for Korn.
yeah.
That's how they got their start, as they were going on the Family Values
Right.
tour with Limp Bizkit and Korn as one of the front running openers, like Polyphia's position now.
Yeah.
And here they
So
are headlining, and they way outsold Korn in the end, as far as like, I mean, Korn was huge and still is a big deal, I guess. But
well, Korn has stayed consistent. The
yeah,
only inconsistency Korn had, they switched a drummer, and then the guitar player left and came back for a while. Like the one guy like found Jesus and did his solo
he can't
thing.
head, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Head did the religious thing, did some solo albums, but he came back. While Head was gone, they had Clint Lowry,
Okay,
Seven Dust, Dark New Day, played with Korn for a while,
that's
like
cool.
doing the thing. This has been
I didn't
long.
realize that. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, but they've stayed consistent. Korn has.
They've stayed consistent.
I've not been an avid listener of Korn for a while. Kyron went through a Korn phase, but it's just hasn't been my thing for years.
Ever since Issues was the last album, I really was able to like love. As far as like, I loved all the way through Issues, and then after that, everything. I mean, I guess I try to avoid rating bands on here, but look, bottom line is nothing that I've listened. I've checked back in on, I believe, every album that they've put out since, and none of it has the magic to me. That it just sounds like like a
Is
more
it
modern redo of their old stuff, and it just doesn't have the.
Does it feel harder to find the magic in bands' releases these days? I feel like it's a
I
less frequent thing.
So I just think it's an age thing, and how much it impacts your life when you're a teenager and you hear the first set of impactful bands while you're budding into your adulthood, and what the world is and what life is, and everything's magical, and you're so influential, and everything's so experimental, and the amount of time that you'll listen to a single thing, like, I don't think that you can rekindle that when you're 40, because there's just so many other things that you've already experienced, like,
Mhm.
everyone's going to have their Star Wars, for their generation, or Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings was some kid's Star Wars for their generation, and like, there's always that. So I think it's the age. I don't know, but I also will say that while I don't listen to it as much, like, once I find an impactful song or album or something, and I love it, and I listen to it, and it's inspiring, and it'll get me to that same point, but I just can't keep it sustained for 2 years of listening. Back in the day, a single album would just stick with me that long, and I just can't find that retention span myself anymore to sit with the one thing. And I think that's also streaming affects that,
Yeah.
versus us buying
Streaming.
albums back in the day.
Yeah, because then you it's off to the next one, off to the next thing, off to the next thing. It's too easy. There's so
It's just
much.
too
It's
easy.
oversaturated. Yeah.
It really is.
Well,
But
who are the other headliners on the other day?
okay, so then after that, they're playing in Chicago, Illinois on August 31st and September 1st, and Avenged Sevenfold is the headliner for that one, or the co-main with that.
Another
And I'm calling it a co-main. I don't think they're calling it that, but these are heavy hitters that they're just throwing in at the right
Yeah,
before they play.
yeah. And Avenged Sevenfold had their big album like right around the same time as BYOB. They weren't around yet. I don't think they weren't super popular like when Toxicity came out. But by the
Yeah.
time BYOB came out, I remember purchasing an Avenged Sevenfold album and listening to it and being really impressed with the guitars and not sure if I liked it. Again, the very distinctive vocalist, not really my thing. But I was on this verge, like I was listening to it myself. I lived by myself down in Central Florida, kind of isolated from my friends. No Facebook, no MySpace, no Instagrams yet. No cell phones. Just a CD in the truck every day on my way to work and my way home, and like thinking, I think I like this. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like Metallica. It's kind of not like Metallica. It's like I let some other people hear it. Eventually, I landed on not being a huge fan of Avenged Sevenfold, but it was more so just because vocally, they didn't like it because I was unsure. I listened to it a lot and I
Yeah.
liked it, but because I was unsure how I felt, it ended up just being nope, not for me, and I didn't
Yeah.
never never like went to go see them live or bought
I've
more.
never seen them live either. I have a feeling I'd probably like them more live. I feel very similarly to how you feel about it. Like, I
Yeah.
definitely don't dislike it. I like it. I just don't gravitate to listening to it very often, and I feel like I get my fill after a few songs. I've listened to, I think their last album that they put out was a interesting uh, experiment. Um, it was like, I mean, because they were trying some different stuff in this last album that they put out within the last year or year and a half, I think. But it still was all like, it felt like it was all for the purpose of trying to make something different. It's like they hit all the check boxes of what they should have,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't quite sound like that unique thing that just absolutely gets me, like, like what we're talking about with like System of a Down, for instance. It doesn't have that distinguished mark to it, even though I don't know. I mean, here I am like picking on it, but look, we're just talking about what does absolutely put magic in our eyes, and it's never quite sank into me. I've tried it quite a few times, and I still will work out to it here and there, but yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't come back to it consistently.
Yeah, it's like it's not if it comes on and I'm doing something, I'm not gonna go, "Oh, I gotta turn that off."
Yeah.
It's not
And
like
I'm
that.
curious what they put out. Like if they put out
Yeah,
something new, I'll check it out,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. But I won't, like, say, search Avenged Sevenfold, play this song. I couldn't name a song,
I
unfortunately.
can't either.
I can't, and so I'm not a
Yeah,
fan.
I can't either.
Not like that, but I don't have anything against Avenged Sevenfold. I think that
Yeah.
they're a great group.
Yeah. They are good. They're technically very, very good. I mean,
Who
they can do anything they want to do, I think.
who are the other headliners? We're
Okay,
gonna
last
we're gonna
well,
we're gonna
and
put
on
it
that
out
show
against the headliners.
it's going to be, with Polyphia and this other band I've never checked out, Wisp. Wisp and Polyphia are opening for all the shows. So the only thing that's changing is the co-main on each of these tour places. And then the last one is in Toronto, Ontario. So, it's not even in the US. And it's Deftones there.
Oh, wow.
So that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would
But I'll
that
I'll tell you personally, for me, I would want the Corn one. I like Corn more than Deftones personally. I had way more of a relationship with Corn.
yeah,
For me, that's
yeah, for me, the earlier Deftones stuff was more influential than maybe not. I don't know. Like the early versions of both of those bands to me were like my versions of those bands. And then like similar to each one, there was a certain point where I just fell off and didn't get into them. And
yeah.
with Deftones, it was the Minerva album. Like anybody who loves the Deftones and then maybe doesn't love them so much, it was the Minerva album. It was okay. That was
Hmm.
the one where they went a different direction. They were 25 years ahead of their time, and I wasn't ready, and it just didn't do it for me. White Pony, Around the Fur, and Adrenaline.
Hmm.
I still wear those three albums out.
Hmm. Hmm. And they,
Like,
they have stuff that I like on them. I've just never been the biggest Deftones fan. I don't know how many people were excommunicating in these
oh
conversations. Like,
no.
but whatever. If you dig them, I get it. And I enjoyed seeing part of their set at Rockville 2 years ago, except they were playing basically simultaneously. While if you wanted to get any chance of having a decent view of Tool, you had to leave their performance. So I was so disappointed with that. I only got to see them play like three
That's what I don't.
songs.
That's what I don't like about Rockville. The
That's
over
a little bit tricky,
overlaps.
man.
I do
Yeah.
like the overlaps. The only reason I liked the overlap last year was because Baroness got stuck with a pretty rough spot, because similarly there was some other band playing that like probably everybody wanted to go be in line for to get a good spot, and Baroness was playing, but I got right up on the gate for Baroness.
Right.
I mean, front and
Yeah.
center, and I couldn't be happier. And the vocalist even like screamed out. He said, "Hey, just want to let every one of you know that we love and we appreciate you, even though there's so much other awesome stuff happening right now, but you choosing to be here with us means a lot." And I could tell that that was, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but to me, it felt like that was the most polite way to jab at the establishment. Kind of
Yeah.
like, come on, you guys, like really do this to us. But
Yeah.
still, it was fucking amazing, is what it was. It was Baroness,
Yeah.
and I was
That's
up
awesome.
right up front.
Totally, man. No, that's great. I mean, Rockville was very cool, but there were some trade-offs to that whole that
Yeah.
aspect. And I gotta say, in general, like shows that are, I really do prefer the sound quality of shows inside um, places like domes and stuff versus outdoor festivals.
Yeah, it's only you got a sweet spot outside, and if you get too far away, it gets really bad, especially during the day when
Mm,
there's heat. Sound travels
mm,
differently through heat, and you get a bunch
that's
of
an interesting
bodies.
point.
That was an upsetting thing when Fire from the Gods played. We happened to be really far back. The sound was just warbling in the
Yeah,
heat in the distance, and it was really bad. And I really liked that band, and it was
yeah.
very disappointing just because of our vantage point. We couldn't get any closer. It was so hot. It was in
Well,
the
and
worst part
what
of the
about wind?
wind too.
Wind will
Yeah,
throw it too, right?
yeah. Wind, and that was an interesting thing on the cruise ship too,
Mm,
was at night outside in the wind. I mean, a lot of time it was kind of rainy with a lot of wind and the boat's moving, and just sound gets weird, and it's on a boat. It's like there was some weird things, but
interesting.
it wasn't overall bad. It was worse on the filming that happened. It picked up more on the audio clips of the filming that I've heard than
Hmm.
actually in person. It was
Hmm. Well, I could get that. I mean, it doesn't take much wind to contaminate a microphone. It can be pretty, that's why I got to, like I'm using my, I'm filming tomorrow and I had to get some engine sounds and stuff. And I have my blimp, and it's a
yeah, yeah.
big capsule that the shotgun microphone goes
Big
into.
big squirrel tail. Big old
Yeah,
squirrel.
that fur goes around it. So you could get just a basically a muff, which is like just goes, that's the traditional thing that's on the camera, the mic that's on the camera. It's the
Yeah,
furry fuzzy that goes
yeah,
around.
one of these
Yeah,
things.
it kind of just goes right on. It's very furry. But
Mhm.
this blimp is a whole separate thing. Like I got the cheapest one you can possibly get that's considered actually a blimp. And it was like $220 and you put the microphone in that and then you wrap the whole thing again with the furry and it's literally just floating inside of a capsule completely, the entire microphone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that makes that's it. That's what you do to get rid of wind sound happening, and especially if you're going in a vehicle and you're traveling and you're trying to put a microphone out there and record an
Outside.
engine going by,
Yeah, sounds good.
dude, you put it in that blimp and it's basically alleviated. It's amazing,
Yeah,
and
that's
even on the cheap one. But yeah, that's kind of like the tour dates that I know about. And just to drop one last thing, since we mentioned Rockville, if you didn't catch our last episode and you're curious about it, Acid Bath is doing a reunion and playing at Rockville next year, and that is a big deal, man, because they are so good. It's another
that's
one of those bands.
yeah, such an insane thought, because my entire life, by the time I learned of who Acid Bath was, it was they were gone.
Mm,
Audie had passed away, and the band was broke up, and I found myself loving this band like many, many other people, like such a underground influential group. Never in a
mm.
bazillion years would I have thought that I'd ever get a chance to see Acid Bath. And this year there is an opportunity, and it's really insane.
Which is awesome, and I think I'm going to miss it, unfortunately, because of the
Life.
timing of Rockville falling when it is. It's such a complicated time. The
Yeah.
time that I did go was very challenging, but I'm glad I got to. But it's that's a rough. I hate that it's exactly when my kid's birthday and my wife's wedding anniversary is, and my wife's just not into this kind of
Sign
music.
let's sign a petition. They gotta push Rockville to another month. But
When
we
Cue the
gotta
Muses gets big enough, we can demand these things
yeah,
when we're
yeah, yeah.
playing the show.
We sure will. We sure will. How you healing up, by the way?
Oh, good. Let's talk about both of our injuries. My calf that I tore now 3 weeks ago is doing better every day. It's still a bit tight. I don't know if the red light therapy's all I know is it's healing. I don't have anything to compare it to. I'm going to try the red light therapy belt that I have on my back. I'm going to try it on my face. I mean, we're going to see if I get young
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I already have it. I
For
went to my
real?
chiropractor today for like a regular tune-up just to try and avoid my back going out. It's something I started doing like every 4 to 6 weeks to try and avoid my back going
Okay.
out because it's been years of that chronic issue. And he helps. And he said he's actually a big proponent of red light therapy. And I was like, oh, really? So it's like, it's
Hmm.
legit. He said, we've had great success with it. We have a $20,000 unit here. I was like, oh, really? Okay. So like he's all for it. All the data backs it up. So I'm going to keep working with it and trying that. I also had tried a full nasal bottle of the peptide PBC 157, which I've heard a lot of athletes talk about for a few years now. Most people inject it. That's not
That
something I'm
sounds
really interested in. So I
that
just got the nasal spray of it. I did a whole bottle of that. Again, I don't have anything to compare that to for the recovery. So I tried everything. I did the red light. I've been doing the voodoo band flossing still. I did the PBC 157 peptide. I've been taking glutamine, which is supposed to help. It's actually good to take a decent amount of glutamine daily when you're recovering from a surgery or something like that. And then I didn't realize that a side effect of that was also that it helps people take glutamine for your lower intestine for helping rebuild the wall if you have leaky gut, which is very interesting for me because I've been on this meat diet for years, partially because of the inflammation I get from eating other things. And
mhm.
I've been able to eat like some other stuff lately, and I'm not having flare ups. I'm going to keep exploring it and see if this is working as good as it seems to. But I'm about 3 weeks in of glutamine every day, 15 grams a day, which is a pretty large amount, and it's super recommended by some gut health specialists to do exactly that. And you can deplete your gut wall microbiome in your lower intestine from overexerting yourself with exercise. That's
Huh.
one of the things that can do it. And I'm like, huh, this is interesting. I'm having to take a break from exercise because of my leg. I'm
Yeah.
taking all this glutamine. I've had all these issues that line up with the leaky gut syndrome that I've been battling for years. I never have gone into the glutamine thing. So I'm trying that too. I've got glutathione as well. That's also supposed to help with it. Dude, I'm trying everything to get this thing back up and running. I go work tomorrow, filming my last day for a film for Trans Am Worldwide, but it's a relatively mellow day. A couple of interviews, an engine install. I can move at an okay pace. I think it'll be fine. I'm gonna go light on it. You injured yourself.
Yeah, just take it easy because all the glucamine and whatever else,
Glucamine.
red lights and all that, 6 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks,
I'm still counting on
to
that.
eight weeks.
I just want it to heal correctly,
Yeah.
where I don't lose range of motion or some strength and have a shitty muscle fascia. And according to the chiropractor, I told him everything I'm doing. He said, you're doing absolutely everything correctly. This is everything that you're doing. You should just keep doing that. That's exactly the best thing you could do. You
Yeah.
figured it out. It's like, all right, because I didn't go to a doctor, and I don't think a doctor would have recommended, any of the shit that I'm doing, to be honest with you.
They'd sell you some pills or something, man.
That's
They
what I'm
tell
saying.
you,
They just tell me, give me painkillers,
wrap wrap it up and take these percatrols.
That's right. After 3 visits to get that, like
Yeah.
they'd probably send me, you'll need to see if you need to get surgery. We'll do an x-ray, blah, blah. I was like, man, the time and money and potentially wrong direction of actually just focusing on muscle recovery, regrowth with the right supplements, the right therapies, and the right physical therapy. I don't know. I'm weird, leery of doctors.
Yeah, so am I. I don't go. Like
Yeah.
so so my latest injury is in my hand, and the only part of it that is actually martial arts related is so I had got a ringworm, which is a common thing you get doing jujitsu, sweaty dude,
Mm-hmm.
mat and all that. I ended up getting this ringworm in between my first two fingers here, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable spot for a ringworm. But I got the Lotrimin medicine, and it's gone now. It's all that part's all healed up. What I thought had happened, and on top of that, removing the rear bumper off of my Jeep Wrangler, a couple of bolts got stuck because it was like the bolt was inside of the frame, the nut was inside the frame. I didn't have a way to hold the nut, so it backed off a little bit, and then it would just spin the whole thing with like the drill. So I had to cut it. I had to cut the bolts with the Sawzall, and the Sawzall reciprocating saw has a blade goes like this. You got a trigger like a gun. It's a big thing. It goes like that.
Mm-hmm.
The blade was cutting the bolt, and I had like a dull spot on my blade, so I had to pull the blade back towards the tip where I had lots of sharp teeth, and it did this number, and then it went down a little too far, and when it hit the bolt, the entire sawzall had that I was holding with this weird way jammed down, and when it jammed down, it crushed my finger
Oh.
laterally this way on the driveway because I was holding it weird,
Oh
right? So
shit.
so it hit this way, cracked this knuckle. So like
Oh
I still have
damn.
movement, but like movement this way, it
Oh.
pops and crunches and stuff. Like there was
Oh
it's a
no.
little better now. I had this huge sore here, which is
Yeah.
healed over, but it what compounded this injury. So I had I had this aggravating ringworm, this fungal
Yeah.
thing that went away. I had a cracked knuckle, this huge sore here, then insult to injury here at the gate in Wakulla. There's poison ivy growing all over the gate, and I had to use
Yeah.
my hand to do the lock. So I currently have poison ivy all over here
Which you said,
and
haven't you never
here.
had poison
I
ivy?
have never had a bad reaction to poison ivy, but I think because I had this weird fungal infection here at the same time
Uh,
that it must have weakened my immune system, and plus I'm sick. So like
yeah.
all
You
this
said,
all I'm like, really, this is the good end of me being really freaking sick for the
uh-huh.
last 4 days. Like I've been out of
Oh
work,
man.
and but like this just sunk in. Like I have these, it's hard to see. I have these blisters on
Yeah.
on the palm of on, and I don't have soft hands.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I have really, I mean, like mechanic hands. Okay, like I have these blisters are coming up through like a quarter inch of calloused skin, and they're so itchy and
So itchy.
burning and
Yeah.
stupid, and it's on my go-to hand. So like when I played the show in Tallahassee the other night, um, I found when I was picking really fast, this busted knuckle was just jiggling when I'm like fast alternate picking, and
Oh
it's just
man.
like crunchy, crunch, crunch, crunch. Oh, you suck.
Uh,
Oh, and it hurt so bad, but
oh man.
but I still have movement, and it's like it's not. I think it's broken, but it's not like broken in a sense that it's totally broken. I think something
Yeah.
was cracked and got smashed, and the easiest thing to say is that it got broke, but it's just such an aggravating insult because I'm sick and I got this hand and I got to
It
keep it wrapped
sucks,
up, and
man.
I do all this stuff with my hand as we usually do, and it's just a bad place. But
That's weird that you finally got poison ivy
yeah,
on this like triple injured
yeah,
spot while
yeah.
you're sick.
'Cause I go through poison ivy like it's nothing. It
Yeah.
doesn't
And I'm
spread.
mega sensitive. We've talked about this forever now, and
Yeah.
I know exactly what the problem is with poison. I could break out
In
so easily. It's crazy.
Yeah, in the scene in episode 3 of Cue the Muses where we fall on one another. When we filmed that, we literally fell into poison ivy, right? And
And
it
then we
was like,
laid there for the next
oh,
30 minutes
yeah,
executing that scene
filming
25
it
freaking times.
over and over again. We were
Just
too
laying, and
too
you're on top of
scared
me.
to
I'm laying on the poison ivy directly, dude. And it was like
run.
it took like 6 weeks, six
Ooh,
weeks for that to go away. That was all up and down my side, and I remember taking a photo and sending it to you guys that were there at the shoot.
Mhm.
about a week in, and then I sent it to you guys again about 4 weeks in, and it was still there, and it didn't look much better. And you're like, is this a
Believe
new picture?
I couldn't believe it. Like, are you kidding me? No way.
It was the worst poison ivy I think I've ever had as far as a single spot. It was just I thought I was going to be scarred. Like it took like 3 months for the marks to go away on my side and rib cage. I'd never had that before.
I really hope that I think typically, I mean, I'm not saying that I've not been immune to poison ivy my entire life. I've gotten poison ivy, but it gets me. It stays localized and it doesn't get completely inflamed, infected, or anything like
Yeah.
that. Which this has been localized. It's not. I've scratched this. I've been, I'm not the most diligent person in the world. I've messed around, pulled get the crap out of it, scratched my nose and whatever. It
Yeah.
doesn't like spread on me like that. Like most people, I guess, because I'm not that allergic. But this is just really dug in, and I think it's a
Yeah.
compound thing. But
Probably so.
we'll I don't know how long, but we'll give you updates on it, listeners.
It can take a couple of weeks. It's surprising like how long it lasts, but you should probably see some results in a couple of weeks. And um, yeah, it just kind of itches and sucks. Cortisone is supposed to help,
That's
topical
that's the stuff I was thinking of.
hydrocortisone.
I have I have the Lotr excuse me. I'm bad.
Regimen for the fungal.
Yeah, I got the Lotrimin for the fungal, but I need the hydrocortisone for the what would you call poison ivy's allergic reaction? No.
Yeah, it's
Is
an
it an
allergic
allergic
reaction.
reaction?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, well,
anyway, let's segue away from the injury.
okay. All right. So I got a fun thing that I wanted to mention, and I think this is crazy. So there's a movie that was one of those pinnacle zombie movies that came out back in 2001 or
One
2003.
Cut of the Dead.
I still haven't gotten to watch it. So now I know it's about zombies
Yeah.
because I didn't know what the hell it was about. Um, so this was that movie 28 Days Later.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
was
They're doing
filmed
28 years later now.
28 years later. So is now going to come out. New movie. The trailer came out for it over the last week or two. I watched the trailer for it. Now, I'm honestly not the biggest zombie movie guy. I mean, there's some that I like and all that, but what was interesting in particular, it was like 28 Days Later was a pivotal piece because it was made for $8 million and it produced 87 or $85 million at the box office.
Yeah.
And so it was like this huge underground success that blew up, and it was all filmed with these digital mini DV cameras. It's a small, videotape that could record digitally,
Hmm.
and it was the Canon XL1, which was the same class of camera as my first cameras that I bought to become Rough Cut Productions. I bought the
Oh,
Panasonic DVX 100Bs. So you could either buy the Canon XL1 or the Panasonic DVX 100Bs, or you could buy Sony's first, which I don't even remember what that was. But at the time, the Panasonic and the Canon were kind of like neck and neck. And long story short, that is a relatively cheap camera. I mean, I was able to afford them and I didn't have any money yet. I think I got both cameras used for like, I think I got them for one for 1,700 and another one for 15 or 1,800. So that wasn't, I mean, that for me, that was so much, but in camera world, that's like nothing, right? These are like cheap entry level cameras that are professional, but
yeah,
so they
yeah.
filmed that whole movie with those for 8 million and then made 85 million. So
So,
here we
so
are.
turnaround. Go ahead.
What's
Go ahead.
that?
I said
What were
that's
you?
such a good turnaround.
Oh, dude, that's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of movies that spend a couple $100 million and don't have profit margins like that. That's what's so enticing about those
Yeah.
underground hits that are made for lower budgets like that. If they blow up, it's so easy to have a dramatic profit margin, right? Like, but the more you spend, the more you got to recoup before you make anything.
Yeah.
So the newest movie has a budget of $75 million. That's quite a step up from the 8 million that they had back in the day.
What about the mid movie?
So I don't know anything about the mid movie because I didn't even realize they made a mid movie till I started researching this. I
And
don't
I'm not
know.
sure I ever saw that one. That
It
was
was 12. It was
28
called 28 Weeks Later. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, I feel like an idiot to some extent bringing this up as a conversation topic for this episode, with not knowing what happened in the middle, which I'm sure is an interesting thing to itself. But here's the deal: the new one has $75 million budget, and guess what they're using to film it on?
The RC. The
iPhone 15 Pro.
15 Pro?
Yeah, because the
No
16
way.
wasn't out when they started filming it. Yeah,
They're
yeah.
filming on the iPhone
The
15.
whole, I think the whole movie is filmed with iPhone 15 Pros.
What?
Yeah, dude. But they're like being rigged out with great lenses, right? So you can like they're modding them, but the camera is the iPhone 15 Pro. And if you watch that
Wow.
trailer, it's impressive. I mean,
I
it's
haven't paid
crazy.
attention. I've seen it. I've seen parts of the trailer, I think.
Yeah.
This is something like I wanna go all in and rewatch 28 Days Later and like
Okay.
really get back into that area. You
Yeah.
know,
Gotcha.
and I wanna so now that I know it's iPhone, I really wanna watch it.
It's interesting, right? I mean, this is like it's come full circle where they're using ultimately well, in this case, totally a consumer camera.
Yeah.
But for the biggest, massive production, $75 million. I know that's not like Marvel, but that's a crazy amount of money to use that camera. Nobody's spent that much. I think that's the biggest budget. There's been a couple of filmmakers that have used iPhones to make some things, but I think they were more for parts of a specific shot or something. Like they
To
were
get a look.
incorporated.
Yeah, to get a
Yeah. And it
look.
fit it into a place. It's got unique abilities because it's so small and you can put it. I mean, one of the great things to use it for right away is to put it in for a car rig. If you're driving and you want a camera right there pointed at you, you could
Yeah.
use a GoPro or you could use an iPhone. And the
You're
iPhone
not using
simply
a
just has a
camera
better picture.
that's 3.5 feet long with a lens on it.
Right. I mean, it's just like that's so small and thin.
Yeah.
You can just literally put it where the speedometer is and get a shot like that. So
Yeah, through the steering wheel.
absolutely, they're very enticing, and that's part of what they were saying, I guess, is that they used them because of the form factor. And last year it was the creator was shot with the Sony A7S. I'm sorry, the Sony FX3, which has the same sensor as the A7S3,
Yeah.
and that was a big deal because that was a $3,500 camera. That's in the same class of cameras as the Canon R5C that I use, but I think the R5C is better. And so now to do iPhone, and it was weird timing to come across that because I just got my iPhone 16 upgrade from a 12, and I just put out a little video, that has the first sample footage I've done with it without having any attachments to it. It's just straight out of the box. But I have a variable ND filter coming and a little Cinebloom filter coming that'll kind of make all the highlights that are in my shot bloom out so it looks like an old school diffusion lens. I'm going to
Yeah.
put that on there and I'll be running some more tests, and that should be a significant difference because I'll be able to really properly set the camera at specific settings, lock it in using third-party apps, and have these tools on front that are very low profile, extremely low profile, and see what I can get out of it that way. But what an endorsement of the potential that if you watch the trailer for 28 years later, and know that that was shot with iPhone 15 Pros. However, using really awesome lenses on the front of it.
Mhm.
But, that's the boat that you're in to an extent with any camera that you buy is you're going to have to invest in a lens that you're going to put on it anyway. My Canon right now that I'm filming on, the body I recently, this is the second Canon R5C I bought, used 2,900. It was 4,500 when it first came out 2 years ago. But the lens that I have on it right now is 23. Well, it's normally $2,600, and I bought it for 2,300 on sale. Just the lens that I'm using right now is $2,300. So it's as much as almost the camera, and these are still considered relatively cheap lenses in the land of cinema lenses. Cinema lenses can like if you're using area lenses and stuff like that, $25, 50, $75,000 for one lens at one focal length.
Well, it's insane, but it's another it's another category. You make you it's an investment because it's like buying a tool. You're utilizing it to generate income, right?
The,
It's a tool. It's a tool of your trade.
It is. It is. For me, that like the price point I'm buying lenses at, totally acceptable and commonplace to buy your own lenses.
Yeah.
When I talk about those cinema lenses, very rarely do anyone own them other than production houses that rent them
And
out.
it's something that you would rent out. Yeah.
It's something you rent out and you pick
It's
out the right lenses for the project,
it's
and you
like
wait in line for them too.
it's like for me, like someone like me, and not to segue backwards in the conversation, but someone like me who's not I'm not a videographer, I'm not a filmmaker. But I like watching movies and the the lensing and the video quality, like really good video quality will jump out at me, but it's not going to speak any kind of language to me that I would understand. Right? Like so
Hmm.
as and I'm kind of joining the conversation as a unbiased just listener watcher, right?
Hmm.
So I wouldn't know from a shot in a film what kind of lens it was. Like maybe I would understand. Okay, that's a wide angle. Like a
Right.
let's see, this is a wide angle. This is
Wide
a
or
narrow angle.
tight. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the extent. And it's not to say that it's not important to me, but like watching a film for me, like it those are the things that go under the radar for
Sure.
most of your average watch,
99% of people.
and they don't understand how important it makes the feel, right? Because I do
Hmm.
understand, even though I may not realize what's happening, I do understand that what I'm not realizing is everything that makes the atmosphere of what I'm watching what it is.
That's
And
right.
there's so much depth and depth and mystery to it to me, and that's that world that you live in, right there.
It is.
You're
Well,
finding the new avenues, new lenses, new technologies to
and I
do.
don't get to play with the stuff I just quoted. I mean, I get to play with what I've got, but I've never gotten to use an actual cinema lens. I've never gotten to experience the difference. I remember when I first upgraded from a standard definition camera to an HD camera, which was the Canon T3i at that point. And you're talking about even back when I bought it, like a $600 body. And when I experienced using it in comparison to the camera I was just talking about, the Panasonic DVX 100Bs,
Yeah.
I was using this cheaper, ultimately cheaper camera than those, and it was like outperforming it in such a extreme way. I thought, I'm done. This looks just as good as all the big Hollywood stuff. I mean, I remember feeling like it was that capable. All I'm missing is my technique and ability and lighting understanding. Like I can grow with this tool and go all the way. That's the way I felt about it.
Yeah.
And, because it was still, you just never had that power. Then, here we are multiple cameras later. And every time I upgrade and you touch and feel and work with the higher quality stuff, you use that and you go back and you look at your stuff from just a year or two ago and you see the deficiencies. And you realize like there really is a reason that you can not only charge more, but that your work is just perceived in such a different professionalism light. Like looking, if I can watch, I remember thinking that my stuff was like really top notch at a certain point, and like I look back on it and I was like, oh, that still looks good, but I see all the limitations with what I was working with. And I also see the limitations in what my understanding was on the lighting and the color grading and how I put together those shots and the edit and the pacing. And I still have stuff that I think is absolutely great from a few years ago, but you really, once you play with the high quality stuff, it's the same thing to a large extent with audio. Once you really get to work with some of the higher end stuff and you've gotten to taste it and you work with, and then you go backwards and work with the other stuff, you know what you're battling against. You
Mm.
can still get it to sound really good, but you know what you're working against with the lesser quality stuff. The hardware I'm talking about, like how you're going to have to work it and massage it and what the characteristic is of the mic, for instance. That now it's like, okay, well, I know this is this type of mic and it's going to be really good at this type of thing. And if I wanted to get to do this, I'm going to have to tweak it this way in post, and maybe this distance or this, type of voice I can get it to work with. You get all those things. But when you first got that mic, it was the all in one, could do anything. This
Yeah.
thing's insane, right?
There's the rabbit hole you go down with diminishing returns, right?
Yes. Very diminished returns.
And I don't want to open up another segue we're at like a 58-minute mark. We're almost
Take us into one more
We will-
5-minute segue.
we
got 5
can-
more minutes.
we can deep dive into it maybe on the next one, but
Okay.
a similar thing happened to me. I have 5 amplifiers, right? I think I have, I own a Diamond Phantom that I never use, that is a cool amp for recording. I don't want to use it live. It's not reliable. I feel like if I bump it, it's just going to break. But I have my PV 6534, which is my 6505 with EL34 power tubes that has Dick's amp written on it. That is one of my favorite amps. I have my Splon Nitro that we use on Cue the Muses, that Scott Splon built for me, endorsed us. The whole thing is great amp. It's like the perfect hot rod Marshall. But it's like it's an older style. It's not really a modern voiced amp. It's like a hot rod Marshall. It's a classic tone. And then Kyron's amp is a little Hughes and Kettner Tubemeister 40, which is a lunchbox amp with 40 watts that is insane. And I've used it on the last couple of recordings we did. And it's great. And when I played the show last weekend, had every intention of using the Splon. I left the Splon up in Tallahassee, and I had I had this moment of panic driving up Friday. I had to go to rehearsal with Korn. Had to be there by like 7 or 6. We had to be out by 7. So I was trying to be there by 4:30. Didn't make it. Wasn't going to get there till 6. Had to buy strings. And I realized that my amplifier was at my mother's house at the shed in Wakulla, and there was no way I'd be able to get there in time to bring my Splon up to get to practice, because we were practicing at the venue and we had to be out by 7. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I want been wanting, and I still do want, been wanting one of these little orange micro Terror amps. They're like 15 watts. Me and Jeff Withers joke around about getting these little orange amps and just rocking these tiny little orange amps.
Oh yeah.
I was like, man, maybe the Guitar Center in Jacksonville has a little micro Terror that I could pick up for like $100.
Okay.
And like have a little amp to play.
Dude.
And they didn't have one.
Oh,
But
okay.
and I still, like I said, I still want one, but I ended up
need to get one in here.
Yeah, they're
so we could just play when you come through town. You don't have to bring anything.
Yeah. What I'm getting at now is I have enough amps that I can leave one at your house, because I ended up I ended up getting one on this 0 down 0 interest for 4-year deal. But it is the most modern amp I have. It's kind of a one-trick pony. It does modern metal tones. But it's an EVH 5153 stealth EL or stealth 6L6 amplifier. It's like the most modern amp. Like,
I have a stealth patch that I've been using on my Axe effects.
Let me tell you, I got it kind of sight unseen, didn't even play it in the store. I was like, there's a deal on the amp back there. I was just checking out, getting my strings. The guy's like, yeah. I was like, so with the gear card, I don't have to pay you anything. Like, you just give it to me and I pay like $30 a month or something. He's like, yeah. I was like, throw it on there, dude. Okay, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I can do $30 a month, whatever. And just got it. And when I got to practice, I plugged it in for the first time, and it's unbelievably rad.
Oh, exciting.
I was a little like it's just, for stuff that I like it's aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's not as versatile as like my Splon or even the older PV 6534, in that I like to run the dirty channel, and then I like to throttle back the dirty channel for my cleans and get more tones out of it. This thing is like so high gain, like it doesn't throttle back as good. It doesn't like sweeten up. That's the thing about
Understood.
like the Splawn and those classic
Yeah.
Marshall mod amps. You get them to sweeten up and you just do a certain thing. And that's what that amp is for me. It's the most
Right.
versatile thing on one channel. But this thing does this one thing on this
Yeah.
one channel so undeniably well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I will. I'll do some. I haven't
What's
recorded.
Jeff using? What kind of, doesn't he have a
Jeff runs a 5153, the original, the
okay.
original
The
51.
original. Okay.
I had to like look it up. I was like, what's the deal? They both have the same kind of tubes. What's the deal with the Stealth? Why is because the Stealth was like a
Jeff
big,
being the other guitar player in Dave's Last Night and from Fighting Giants.
yeah, Jeff
Just
Withers,
to
and he
give the reference for
yeah,
people.
but he runs, and I have him saved in my phone as 5153 because that's his name. He was super excited when I got
I literally have a patch dedicated to that amp now
Yeah,
with Stealth. It says Stealth on it, and it's the 5153.
it's
And it's one of my like I have 6 patches, and that's one of them. Yeah.
That's it right there. The 51.
Nice.
That's my 6534 below it, and then the diamond's down there. Don't worry about him, but whatever it is that they put in this little guy, I haven't even plugged it in since I got back from the show.
How many watts is it again?
50 watts.
50 watts, right? Yeah, obviously. And how much was it? If you're allowed to say.
1600.
Okay. All right. Nice.
Yeah. So it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't cheap for 50 watts. It was brand new.
Right.
You can get them used, but I got it brand. Like I said, it was an impulse buy, and I was like, I'm just gonna get it because I don't have to put any money down on it, and
Yeah.
it's $30 a month on this deal that they had. And I was like, you know what? If I do it, I'll play one show and I'll return it. But I don't think I'm going to return it because it's so
it's too fun.
What it does. I'll bring
Cool,
it.
man.
I'll record some stuff and see what kind of tones I can get out of it here at the studio and send it to you. And we'll do a deep dive on it because I've only used one channel so far. Jeff, there's 3 channels: the green, the blue, and the red. So it's clean, crunch, and lead. The blue channel is what Jeff uses exclusively for his like rhythm tones. And then he uses the red channel for lead, and where I just use the red channel for everything. And I haven't even dived in, but like they said that they updated the electronics on the Stealth over the original one to modernize the metal, the distorted tone, which it's definitely modernized. I can tell just from chugging along with it. It just has that instant sound. Big Dave used it on his band's set the other night. His band's first show, Over It is the name of his band.
With
Josh,
right?
Josh Ivester on bass and Jeremiah Baker on drums and Big Dave on vocals and guitar. So he's singing, he's playing guitar. He used this amp and just dry into this amp. He didn't use my pedal or my overdrive or anything, just dry into the amp. And I've stood in front and listened. He sounded so good.
Awesome.
Everything sounded good. He sounded good. Josh sounded good. Jeremiah sounded good. The amp sounded good. It was like the right fit. I should probably sell it to Dave.
Yeah, you could sell it to Dave. Well, we do need to end this episode because I've got to get ready for my shoot tomorrow. But one thing I realized in you referencing all this stuff is I didn't ask you about the show, like that I didn't make it to. I was sitting here with my swollen leg. I did not want to go stand at a show for hours. I'm sorry, guys. But
we can save the particulars about that show for the next episode. But a couple of quick highlights, I will say.
Okay.
Ryan Mahoney made it out. I got to shake his hand and see him in person. That was awesome. He's like a legend sitting in the back. Rob Knowles from Off the Record and Jade from Off the Record were out there. It was awesome. Stronghold was awesome. I hung out with your buddy Jonathan.
My old bass player from Kill Clouseau.
Yeah. We and him had a good conversation out back. I told him how big a fan Kyron was of Kill Clouseau. And
cool.
Warmed his heart. We talked about you, and I text you. We're out back.
I know you guys are talking. We're talking shit about you because I wasn't there.
And Kyron got to play with us in Core for a song, and it was really cool. And the show, song fell an hour behind schedule, and we didn't go on until 12:30 in the morning. So don't feel bad that you didn't come because we started playing by the time we were supposed to be done playing. It got that
Wow.
far behind. Not really anybody's fault. I did everything I could. I was up helping Shaggy, helping bands get stuff
Yeah.
on and off the stage. It just, when you have that many bands, there was just, I think maybe one too many bands for a night like that. There was a lot of bands playing, and there was just there's no like stage techs plural. It's just Shaggy, and that's why they
Yeah.
had me too. I was helping in between everyone as well, but I can't help Shaggy.
Nice.
Shaggy's got his system for his mics, But
Right.
other than the setback and it running long, it was a really good time, and
Cool, man.
we'll talk more about it on the next one.
Sounds like a plan, dude. Now, I'm sorry for not remembering to ask earlier. We've
Chris-
got
No,
Yeah.
we had plenty of stuff to
Good stuff.
talk about on this
Yeah.
one, and we've got plenty of stuff saved up to talk on the next one.
Oh yeah. So check back in next time, guys. We'll talk about more things indeed.
And cue the Muses podcast, the MuseCast.
The MuseCast. Yes.
Okay, thanks for hanging with us, guys.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Have a great Saturday or whenever the hell you're watching.
Christmas. Have a great Christmas. Bye.
Happy Christmas holiday time.